Hello designers, this is Rebecca and today I'm going to show you how to make a web animation using the frame animation option in Photoshop. We're also going to pull over some elements that we created earlier in Illustrator. So I'm going to go ahead in Photoshop, choose New File from the Welcome screen. When our new document window comes up, choose Web from the profile along the top there. According to Instagram, they want it to be 1080 by 1080 pixels. We can leave our resolution at 72 and our color mode at RGB and hit create. Now we have a nice square artboard to work with. If you don't see your timeline palette, go ahead and go up to window and choose timeline from that menu there. Now let's go over to Illustrator and see what we're working with here. So this file I have open is the file that we created our 3D text from. I also have my book cover file. So I'm going to start with the 3D text. I'm going to go ahead and select all of this text. I decided to use the one with the line breaks in it because then I can make that title even larger in my ad. So I have all of that stacked, those stacked objects selected. I'm just going to hit Command C to copy. Then I'm going to go over to Photoshop and hit Command V. I'm going to paste these as layers and hit OK. When you paste as layers in Photoshop, it creates a little layer group for you. So I'm going to go ahead and call this group, I'm going to change the layer name to title. And titling, labeling your layers is going to make your life a lot easier as you're animating. So I just hit Command T to transform. I'm just going to make this much larger, nice and big. It's not going to take up the whole artboard, but I just want it to be, very large. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go over into Illustrator and go to my next file. I have my the author and the illustrator here, so I'm going to just click on both of those and select them and hit copy, and then go over into Photoshop and hit paste again, Command V. I'll paste as layers. And it says this is copied from a document that was in CMYK. There's going to be some shift when we change to the color mode, but I'm okay with that, so I'll just hit continue. Now that's tiny, but I'm going to go back into Illustrator and choose this text as well. So this text I just created earlier, it's going to show me, we need to see the who, what, when, where, and how in this ad. So the who is the author and illustrator, the what is the book, The Wizard of Oz, the when is when it's available, so that's November 8th, the where is where you can find it, and the how is how you can get it, so it's available as Kindle, Audible, and print. So I'm just going to hit Command C to copy. Once I select that, go back into Photoshop, hit Command V to paste. I'll paste it as layers again and hit OK. Yep, I'm okay with that. Great. So I'm going to go ahead over here to my layers, and I want to change this first group to, I'll say author, and then I'll change the second group to, I'll say details. Okay, great. So let me select both of those. We want them to be larger. Hit Command T and we'll grow them at the same time. Remember, you don't hold the Shift button as you are scaling your objects in Photoshop because it does distort it. Great. So now I'll just grab this author layer and move it over here. And I'll grab my details layer. I think I'm going to rotate it, so I'll hit Command T to bring up that transform box. And I want it to be parallel to the title there. Let's see. Ooh, I just shifted again. Nope, I gotta rotate just a tad more. There we go. And I'll hit OK. Great. So now I'll find my placing. Looks pretty good to me. I think this could look better. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna let it be for now. Okay, great. So I also want to bring in some background layers. So let's go back into Illustrator. I have, let's see, let me drop this properties panel, go down here. I'm going to click on this link is my background texture, and then I have another colored rectangle over it that's like a creamy color because the texture itself is pretty gray. So I'm going to hit Command C to copy those, go over to Photoshop. I'll click on this bottom layer and hit Command V to paste it as layers. Yep, I'm okay with that. Let's hit continue. Okay, so this one, it looked like it didn't add my, let's see. Yeah, it only added the rectangle. So let's go ahead and transform that so that it's the same size as my artboard there. So if you need to make a change to a shape in Photoshop and you don't want it to lock the proportions, then you do hold down the shift button in Photoshop. It's real goofy. All right, so there's my shape there. Okay, so instead of, it didn't bring over that linked file from Illustrator because it was a linked file. So let's go ahead and make a linked file here. I'm going to go to File, Place Linked, and I'm going to go find that texture. So let's see here, background texture, JPEG, place. There we go, cool. So I'm going to pull this up by the corner so it covers at least our artboard there. I don't want this to distort because textures look weird when they're distorted. And I want it to be below that creamy color. There we go. Perfect. Lovely, lovely. So I'm just bringing in all of these elements, right? The next thing I want to do is bring in a photo. So I'm going to go to File, Open. I already edited this photo in Photoshop. And so I cut out this house here. Let's see, Dorothy's house. And I turned it into black and white, and then I applied um, a pixel, I just forgot what it's called, like a halftone pattern to it. Woo, okay. So I'm going to select this house by holding down the Command or Control button and clicking on the icon in the Layers panel. I'm sorry, the thumbnail in the Layers panel. So you can see the marching ants around that house. I'm going to hit Command C to copy, bring it on over to our other Photoshop file, hit Command V to paste. It is humongous, so let me zoom out. I'm going to hit Command T to transform that house. Zoom out till I can see the bottom edge there, and then I'll just drag it in. And then I'll zoom back in. Let me see, is that the size I want? Maybe a little bigger. And I'll hit Return to commit to that transformation. Ooh, it's making Photoshop work hard now. Let's see. Don't worry about that white square. It's just the preview taking a minute to load. I know that I want this house to be above my creamy background there. That looks good. Great. All right, cool. And then let me see. Oh, I need a new fill layer. So I'm going to go up to my layer and new fill layer, and I'm going to hit gradient for this one. From the color, let's choose blue because I'm going to have it when Dorothy's house lands, the sky is going to turn blue. So I'll hit OK. When I hit OK with the gradient option, a gradient fill is going to come up, a gradient fill window. I'm going to go down and look for cloud. There we go. And I'll choose this first option there. And I'll hit OK. I want something more blue. So let me click on my gradients panel. I want it really sky blue. Oh, yes, that is nice. So that's going to look great. Okay, I'll collapse my gradients panel, my properties panel, so I can look over here. I know I want the sky to be behind my house eventually. And that's everything. That's everything I'm going to have in my animation. So I've laid it out basically how I want the animation to, I'm sorry, all the placement of the objects to be finalized. So this is where they're all going to end up, okay? Now we get to start animating. So let me close this Dorothy's house file. I'm going to go ahead and shut down Illustrator only because I know that Photoshop is going to need to work really hard, right? So here we go. So go down here to create frame animation. The other option is create video timeline, but today we're working with the frame option. The frame option is the simplest way to animate in Illustrator, but it also has the least options because it's so simple. So I'll show you what I mean. So hit create frame animation, and it's going to make your first little frame there. Okay, this is called the keyframe. So next I'm going to go ahead and start moving my objects off of my artboard to where I want them to be for the very start of this animation. So I'll start with details because that's my top layer. I'm just going to click and holding down Shift to lock um, the the y-axis basically, so it just goes straight up and down. It's not going to be crooked at all. Then I'll click on the author next, and I'll pull that off the artboard as well. I'll pull it straight down. And now look at our layers panel. Whenever we pull things off of the artboard, it comes out of this artboard layer group and it pops up above it, okay? So don't be worried when that happens. That's just why it happens, okay? I'll click on my title next and I'm going to slide it to the left. So these are similar to things that you can do in an animation for a PowerPoint presentation. That's just basically what I'm doing here. I'm going to next click on the house layer. My dog is snoring. Stop, shush. Sorry about that. Okay. I'm going to click on this house layer, pull it on up here. It's going to come in flying up from the corner. Okay. I'm going to turn off the visibility of my sky. And let me change the name of my house layer to house so that I have a better idea of what's going on. Yeah, that looks great to me. Okay, cool. And okay, we're ready to go. So my first frame is just going to be this blank, dingy dust bowl background here. I'll go ahead and click this duplicate selected frame button here, this little plus at the bottom of the um, timeline panel. Click on it. Okay, now we have an identical frame. I'm going to make sure that my house is selected, and I'm going to pull it down, pull a corner down into the frame. I'll click make a new frame, or duplicate the frame again, pull it down a little further. Duplicate the frame again, pull it down a little further. So this is going to look like stop-go animation, all right? And just click again. It's going to be choppy because I'm jumping quite a bit, but the more frames you have, the smoother the animation. So it's going to come in a little bit more. Before I get any further, let me go ahead and show you our time allotment for each of these frames. I'm going to choose no delay for these, okay? So let me just make sure they all say no delay. When you duplicate that frame, it's going to say this, it's going to also duplicate the time thing, but let's just make sure, no delay. The shorter amount of time you have per frame, the smoother the animation will be as well. Okay, no delay, cool. Okay, let me make a new keyframe here. Click on that plus, and click again. Come on, there we go. So I'm going to have this house kind of bounce a bit. So I'm going to lower it below the frame, then have it jump up a bit and settle down. Great. So now I'm done animating the house. Let me go ahead and click on a new one. I'll let this house sit here for a little bit. So I'll do maybe a half a second or a second. Half a second's pretty quick. Remember, the requirements for this assignment is a 15-second minimum to 1 minute maximum. All right. So changing the duration of how long a keyframe will sit will extend the amount of time your animation runs. All right, so next I'm going to bring in my sky. It's going to start turning blue, but I want it to gradually turn blue, so I'll click on that layer and I'm going to change the opacity. We'll start around 25 and then make a new frame, change it to 50. Come on, there we go. Just about, and then make a new frame, change it to 75 this time, so it's just going to go up by like 4 increments. New frame, guess what? 100% opacity. Great, now we have a beautiful blue sky. Let's go ahead and click on this little button here. This is going to jump us to our first frame, and we'll hit the play button to preview it. Now when it first previews, it's going to go a bit slow because it's sort of buffering. When you render this file, it's going to go super fast. There will be no delay between those frames. It's not going to be quite as choppy as it is right now in Photoshop, in the Photoshop preview, but there you go. So it's looking all right to me. Let me just see where it's getting hung up. Okay, so there's a part here where it's jumping quite a bit in the frames. Or there's an extra frame, it looks like. Okay, so let me delete this extra frame. So I just hit that little trash can with that frame selected. I'll hit OK. Now let's see. Do. Okay, so between these two frames, it's doing quite a jump. So what I can do is I'll select both of these frames, and then I'll go down here to this tweening button here. Okay, it's like, looks like a little comet coming down. So I'll click on that. Our tween options are going to pop up. We want to select all layers and select all the parameters. It seems to work the best when I do this. I've tried to do it with doing just the selected layers and just adjusting the position, and it just doesn't seem to work as well. So I'll just hit it all and hit OK. And so it automatically creates these blends, these frames with like a blend between them. It's really nice. So it drops in more frames for you to make your animation smoother. Just remember, like I said, the more of these frames there are, the larger this file, the harder Photoshop's going to work. Your computer might crash, but don't be too scared. Give it a try until it crashes, and push it to the limits. All right, so let's go ahead and save this real fast. Now that I'm talking about crashing our computers, let's see, sample animation 1. Save it. Okay, great. So now let's go ahead and let our text come in. So we will start with our title of our book. And so I clicked on that title layer in the layers panel, and I'm just going to start pulling it over. I'm holding down Shift to lock that X axis. And I'll go ahead and make a new frame, pull it over some more. You get the picture. So now that I've dropped this onto our artboard, that layer popped down into the artboard group. Now don't worry about this. This is just the preview taking a while to load. Let me stop that. I accidentally hit play. So, okay, let's see where my last keyframe was. Cool. Okay, let's make a new keyframe. Pull it over. You get it. And I'll just keep going. And I have the max amount of RAM possible for this laptop. So, you know, and even on a super fast system, this can happen. And one more, I'm going to get it parked over here. Good. Okay, then let's go ahead and bring in our, we can make a new keyframe. I'm going to let this one sit here for a second, and then keep these ones at no delay. Now I'm going to pull in the author layer. So I'll just pop it up there to get it onto the artboard. Now I hit a new one, new frame, pull it up some more. Don't worry that part of it appears to be missing because it's just an illusion. I'll keep going further up, and then park it where it's going to land. That's cool. Great. Then I can duplicate that one, but I may go back and give that one 1 second to sit. Then let's go to, you know what? Before I do that, let me delete that new keyframe. I'll just click on it one time. Yes, I want to delete it. Let's give this an effect because we can also animate effects. So I have this author layer selected. Go down here to effects, and I'm going to give it a drop shadow, but not a gnarly drop shadow. I like a subtle drop shadow. I don't know if you saw that change there. I'm going to pull my opacity all the way up to black, 100% black. I have my distance and spread and size only down to 1. So this isn't like a super noticeable drop shadow. It's just enough to separate it a bit more from that background. I'm not too worried about the background making it illegible now because my end frame is not going to have the house at all. It's just going to be all this beautiful text on a blue background and totally legible. But for now, we might as well, save the reader a little eye strain by giving this tiny drop shadow. So that is cool with me. I'll hit preview so you can see the difference. Look at that text. When I get rid of it, it's much flatter. When I add it, just a little bit of pop off of that background, right? So I'll hit OK. All right, now let me hit a new layer. And this one I'm going to change to no delay. I'm going to bring up, let's grab our title, no, I'm sorry, our details layer and start pulling it up. Get it onto the artboard a bit. Okay, great. And then give it another one. So when we were pulling that author layer up, it didn't have an effect on it, just like this one. Doesn't have an effect right now. Okay, keep going. And line it up where I want it. I'm happy with that. I'll go ahead and add that same drop shadow to this layer. And it keeps the last setting, so I'll hit OK. And that looks good to me. I'll give it a second to be red. Great. Now let me make a new layer. I'm sorry, new keyframe, and I will change it to no delay. Excuse me. I'm going to let the house start disappearing. So here I'm going to change the opacity of this house layer to 75, just like we did with that blue background. I'm just going the opposite direction this time. Now I made a new frame, pull it down to 50%. Excuse me. New frame, take it down to 25%. And one more, take it down to 0%. Great. And this is my final frame that I'm going to land on. So I'm going to give this a nice 5-second delay there. And now you can loop this. Right here is your looping settings. All right. Mine is set for forever. You can loop it once, twice, 3 times. 3 times would be good. Then it will just like lay on this window. That'll be nice, or this frame. So let's go ahead and jump back to the beginning. We'll preview it real fast. Ooh, it slowed down as it almost hit the ground there from those tweening frames. Looks good. Slowly chugging, chug, 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 chug. Nice. Oh, it looks great. And it'll loop again. There it goes. Okay, cute. I love it. Let me save it. Command S. Saving. Good. So now let me show you how to export this. So we're going to go to File and Export. And then at the bottom, it's going to say, oh, hold on. Let me show you a secret before we do this. Go up here to this little hamburger menu in the top corner of the timeline. And you want to choose Optimize Animation. Okay. So Optimize Animation, we're going to have both of these boxes checked and we'll just hit OK. There we go. I'll hit save one more time. Now I'm going to go to File, Export, go down to Render Video. Let me wait for this window to pop up. Progress. Great. So from here, we will find a place to put it, and then we'll leave all this format stuff alone. But right here where it says size, choose document size. That's going to give you the best option. So that's probably not the default. The default was probably something like HDV 1080 or whatever. Choose document size for this and hit render. And then it goes and it goes. Sometimes it takes a little while depending on, your computer basically, and the size of your file, obviously, how many frames you've got there and how complicated your animation is. So we want this to be either an MP4 or an MOV file for Instagram and for TikTok. Great. So then before I show you what it looks like, I just want to tell you if you're going to make another animation that is different dimensions, I recommend not creating a second artboard in this Photoshop file. I recommend making a totally new document. So same thing, go to Web. The other document's going to be 540 by 960. This is what TikTok prefers. And RGB 72 resolution is great. Hit create, but you can take a shortcut. Now that you've pulled all these things in, you can just grab them from here like this and then pull them up, hover over that tab, and then hit shift before you drop it, and it will center all the stuff. Well, it didn't center it, but That's usually what happens there. So now you have all your layers there. I would close this file before creating the new animation over here. But now you don't have to go through and pull all those things. And for your second animation, since it's on a different platform, you'll have the same branding, by keeping the text the same. But instead, maybe pull in, oh, I already closed my Illustrator file. I'm going to pull in those poppies and get rid of the house. Just totally delete this layer altogether. And instead I'll have little poppies come up like blink, 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 and it'll be so adorable. All right, so that's what I recommend for that. Let's go see what our little animation looks like. Okay, let's watch it. You guys, it's so good. It is so good. So thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see what you come up with.